Welcome to Empathy Stories, where every tale unveils profound moments of discovery and connection. In today's story, millionaire Michael Harper's ordinary walk through the streets of New York leads to an extraordinary encounter with four identical girls who look eerily like his late wife, Olivia. This shocking revelation sets him on a journey to uncover a hidden past. Join us as we explore the unexpected twists in his search for answers. The bustling streets of New York City were alive with energy as Mike Harper stepped out of his office building in Midtown Manhattan. The glass facade of the Harper Tech headquarters gleamed in the late afternoon sunlight, a testament to Mike's years of relentless hard work and determination. To the world, he was a symbol of success, a millionaire tech entrepreneur whose influence shaped industries. But beneath the tailored suit and polished demeanor was a man carrying a heavy burden of loneliness. As his driver, James, approached with a black town car, Mike waved him off. "I think I'll walk today." "James," he said with a faint smile, "meet me by Central Park in an hour." James hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Yes, sir." Mike adjusted his tie and began walking down the crowded streets, blending into the sea of people. The chaos of the city, the honking taxis, the street vendors calling out to passersby, the chatter of pedestrians, was a stark contrast to the silence of his sprawling estate on the outskirts of New York. He often found solace in these walks, a brief escape from the weight of his responsibilities and the haunting memories of his late wife, Olivia. It had been 6 years since Olivia's death in a tragic accident. And though the world expected him to have moved on, the truth was far more complicated. Olivia had been the love of his life, the one person who truly understood him. Her absence left an emptiness that no amount of wealth or success could fill. As he walked, lost in thought, something caught his eye across the street. A woman in her early 30s was shepherding 4 young girls along the sidewalk. The girls were identical, their golden curls bouncing in the sunlight, their floral dresses fluttering as they skipped along. But it wasn't just their appearance that made Mike stop in his tracks. It was their faces. Each of them had Olivia's face. Mike's breath hitched, and for a moment, he wondered if he was hallucinating. His heart pounded as he stared at the children, his mind racing. How could this be? Olivia was gone, yet here were 4 little girls who looked exactly like her. He followed them instinctively, crossing the street without a second thought. The woman guiding the girls had dark brown hair tied in a messy ponytail and wore simple but elegant clothes. She led them into Central Park, where the children ran toward the swings, their laughter ringing out like a melody Mike hadn't heard in years. The woman sat on a bench, her gaze following the girls as they played. Mike stood at a distance, unsure of what to do. He felt like an intruder, yet he couldn't walk away. The resemblance was too uncanny. Each girl had Olivia's bright blue eyes, her delicate smile, her unmistakable features. One of the girls called out, "Mommy, look how high I can go." The word mommy echoed in Mike's mind, and he felt his chest tighten. These children had a mother, a life, a family. But how could they look so much like Olivia? His thoughts drifted back to his college days, a long-forgotten memory surfacing. During his early 20s, when money was tight, he had made a decision he barely thought about since a sperm donation. At the time, it had seemed like a practical solution to help pay for his tuition. But could it really have led to this? Taking a deep breath, Mike approached the bench, his steps hesitant. The woman looked up, her expression cautious as her eyes met his. "Excuse me," Mike began, his voice unsteady. "I know this might sound strange, but your daughters, may I ask about them?" The woman's brow furrowed, her protective instincts kicking in. "Why do you want to know about my daughters?" she asked, her tone wary. Mike hesitated. "They look like someone I knew, someone very important to me. Please, forgive me if this seems intrusive, but were they conceived through artificial insemination?" The woman's eyes widened in shock, her body tensing. "Who are you?" she demanded. "I'm Michael Harper," he said, his voice steadying. "And I think I might be their biological father." Her reaction was a mix of disbelief and concern. "Mr. Harper," she began cautiously, "this is an unusual situation. to say the least. My name is Rachel Bennett. These are my daughters, Grace, Emma, Sophie, and Claire. And yes, they were conceived through artificial insemination. But why do you believe you're their father? Mike's chest tightened as he struggled to put his thoughts into words. Years ago, I made a sperm donation during college. I never thought much of it at the time, but seeing your daughters, they look exactly like my late wife, Olivia. The resemblance is undeniable. Rachel's expression softened slightly as she processed his words. Mr. Harper, this is a lot to take in. My daughters are my world, and I'm very protective of them. If what you're saying is true, I need time to understand it. Mike nodded, his voice filled with sincerity. I understand completely. I don't want to disrupt your lives. But seeing them, it feels like I've been given a piece of Olivia back. I would never ask to take anything away from you. If nothing else, I'd like to get to know them, even if it's just as a family friend. Rachel studied him carefully, her gaze searching for any sign of ill intent. Finally, she sighed. This isn't a decision I can make lightly. Mr. Harper, my daughters don't know anything about their conception, and I need to protect them. Of course, Mike said, pulling a business card from his wallet and handing it to her. Here's my card. If you ever feel comfortable, you're welcome to contact me. I live just outside the city in a large estate. If you'd like, you and the girls could visit for a day. No pressure, no obligations. Rachel glanced at the card, her eyes widening slightly as she recognized the name. Michael Harper, one of the most prominent figures in New York. She tucked the card into her pocket, her expression cautious but thoughtful. I'll think about it, she said simply. Mike nodded. That's all I can ask. Thank you for hearing me out. As he walked away, he couldn't help but glance back at the swings, where the girls were still laughing and playing. Their joy was infectious, and for the first time in years, Mike felt a flicker of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel. Hope. That night, back at the Harper estate, the grand house felt emptier than ever. Mike stood on the balcony, staring at the city lights in the distance. He thought about Rachel, about the girls, about the strange and unexpected turn his life had taken. He didn't know what the future held, but he was certain of one thing. He couldn't walk away from this. Not now. Not ever. The following week felt like a slow crawl for Michael Harper. His routine meetings, calls, and responsibilities barely registered. Every free moment was consumed by thoughts of Rachel Bennett and her daughters, his daughters. He replayed their meeting in Central Park over and over, wondering if he had said the right things, if he had left her with the right impression. He feared he had come off as desperate or invasive. But the truth was, he was desperate to connect, to understand, to see a part of himself and Olivia in them. One evening, just as the sun began to set behind the towering skyline, Mike's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and froze. It was a number he didn't recognize, but something told him to answer. Michael Harper, he said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside him. Mr. Harper, came Rachel's voice on the other end, hesitant but clear. This is Rachel Bennett. Mike's breath caught, and he straightened in his chair. Rachel, thank you for calling. I wasn't sure if I'd hear from you. There was a pause before she replied. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about the girls and everything. It's a lot to process. I understand, Mike said softly, and I don't want to rush you into anything. I meant what I said. I'll respect whatever decision you make. Rachel's tone softened. I believe you. That's why I've decided to accept your invitation. The girls don't know about the connection yet, but I think it's important for us to at least meet again. I want to understand who you are before I make any decisions about how to explain this to them. Relief and gratitude washed over Mike. Thank you, Rachel. I can't tell you how much this means to me. I'll make sure everything is ready for you and the girls. When would you like to come? They agreed on a Saturday morning. 2 days away. Mike offered to send a car, but Rachel declined, insisting on driving herself. It's important that the girls feel comfortable, she explained. The next 2 days were a blur of preparation at the Harper estate. The house staff, unused to seeing Mike so animated, sprang into action under his guidance. The game room was stocked with toys. the pool area meticulously cleaned, and the garden trimmed to perfection. Mike even had the kitchen prepare a selection of child-friendly snacks and desserts. "Sir," said Mrs. Turner, his longtime housekeeper, as she watched him inspect every detail. "I've worked for you for over a decade, and I've never seen you this involved." Mike gave her a small, sheepish smile. "I suppose I want everything to be perfect. This is important, Mrs. Turner." She nodded knowingly. "It's good to see you excited about something again. Mr. Harper, the house has been too quiet for too long." By Saturday morning, the estate was ready. Mike stood at the front entrance, dressed casually in slacks and a light sweater, feeling more nervous than he had in years. At precisely 11 a.m., he heard the sound of a car pulling into the long, winding driveway. His heart raced as he stepped outside to greet them. Rachel emerged first, opening the back doors to help her daughters out. The girls were dressed in colorful sundresses, their golden curls glinting in the sunlight. They clung to Rachel's sides, their wide eyes taking in the grandeur of the estate. "Welcome," Mike said, his voice warm but slightly shaky. "I'm so glad you're here." Rachel gave him a small smile, her own nerves evident. "Thank you for inviting us." One of the girls, the boldest of the group, stepped forward and looked up at him. "Mommy says your name is Mr. Harper. Do you live in a castle?" she asked, her voice full of awe. Mike chuckled, kneeling to her level. "Well, Grace," he said, remembering her name from the introductions. "It's not quite a castle, but it does have a lot of rooms." Grace beamed, and her sisters giggled, their initial shyness beginning to fade. Rachel watched the exchange carefully, her expression softening as she saw Mike's genuine effort to connect with the girls. "Would you all like a tour?" Mike asked, standing again. The girls nodded enthusiastically, their excitement contagious. Mike led them through the estate, showing them the game room, the library, the garden, and finally the pool area. Each stop brought more laughter and curiosity. Grace was drawn to the art supplies in the game room. Emma found fascination in the library's shelves of books. Sophie loved the garden's colorful flowers, and Claire declared the pool her favorite part. Rachel stayed close, observing how her daughters interacted with Mike. She saw how he knelt to their level, how he listened intently to their endless questions, and how his smile seemed to grow softer with each moment. It was clear to her that he wasn't just going through the motions. He genuinely cared. As the girls played in the garden, Rachel and Mike sat on a shaded bench nearby. For the first time since their meeting in Central Park, they had a chance to talk without the chaos of introductions. "Mr. Harper," Rachel began, but he interrupted gently. "Please, call me Mike." She smiled slightly. "All right, Mike, I have to admit, I wasn't sure about this, but seeing how you are with the girls, I'm starting to feel like I made the right choice by coming here." Mike nodded, his expression earnest. "Thank you, Rachel. I know this situation is unconventional, to say the least, and I can't imagine how difficult it must be for you. But I'm truly grateful that you're giving me this chance." Rachel hesitated before asking, "What do you hope to get out of this?" "Mike, what's your goal?" He took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I don't want to disrupt your life or theirs. I don't even know what role, if any, I could play. But seeing them, it's like seeing a part of Olivia again. I think I just want to be present in some way, even if it's small." Rachel studied him for a moment, then nodded. "I respect that, and I appreciate your honesty. But this isn't just about you or me. It's about them. They're still too young to understand something like this, and I need to protect their innocence as long as I can." "Of course," Mike said quickly. "I wouldn't dream of doing anything that would make them uncomfortable." Their conversation was interrupted by a chorus of laughter as the girls raced over to show them the flowers they had picked. Rachel smiled at them, her heart full. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she wasn't alone in carrying the weight of being their mother. As the afternoon sun began to dip lower in the sky, Rachel gathered the girls and prepared to leave. Mike walked them to the car, his heart heavy but hopeful. "Thank you for coming," he said sincerely. "I hope you'll visit again." Rachel gave him a thoughtful look as she helped the girls into the car. "We'll see, Mike." one step at a time. As the car disappeared down the long driveway, Mike stood in the fading light, feeling a mix of emotions. For the first time in years, his estate felt alive, filled with laughter and warmth. And for the first time, he allowed himself to hope that this could be the beginning of something new, a connection to the past, and perhaps a chance for a brighter future. Weeks passed, and Rachel Bennett found herself navigating the delicate balance of building a relationship with Mike Harper while protecting her daughters. Their visits continued, and though she remained cautious, Rachel couldn't ignore the bond forming between Mike and her girls. He was patient and kind, never pushing for more than Rachel was ready to give. Slowly, she began to see him not just as a stranger from her past, but as someone who could play an important role in their present. One Saturday, Rachel agreed to meet Mike at Central Park, a neutral location where they could spend time with the girls without the formality of Mike's mansion. The day was sunny, and the girls couldn't contain their excitement as they ran ahead of Mike and Rachel, eager to explore. The park felt alive with energy, and Rachel watched as Mike engaged with each of the girls individually. He patiently answered their questions, listened to their chatter, and laughed at their jokes. It was clear that he wasn't just doing this out of obligation. He truly cared for them. As the afternoon wore on, Rachel found herself relaxing, her fears fading as she saw how comfortable the girls were with Mike. For the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. Later, as they sat on a bench, the girls happily playing nearby, Rachel looked at Mike and spoke from her heart. "Mike, I didn't expect things to progress like this," she said, her voice tinged with honesty. "But you've been so kind to us, and the girls, they adore you." Mike smiled, his eyes softening. "I never imagined I'd be in this situation, but I'm glad I'm here. I don't want to rush anything. Rachel, I just want to be part of your lives, whatever that looks like." Rachel took a deep breath, thinking about how far they'd come. She had spent so long guarding her heart, but in Mike's presence, she felt something stirring, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. "I appreciate that," Rachel said quietly. "I'm not sure where this will go, but I'm willing to take the next step." As time passed, Rachel, Mike, and the girls began to find their rhythm. Their bond grew naturally, with each visit strengthening their connection. The girls' affection for Mike was evident, and Rachel's trust in him deepened as she saw how much he genuinely cared for them. One evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Rachel and Mike sat together in the living room, a quiet sense of contentment between them. "I'm glad we're doing this," Rachel said softly, her gaze meeting his. "I think we've built something real here." Mike nodded, his expression warm. "I feel the same way. I've never been more certain of anything in my life." In that moment, Rachel knew that whatever uncertainties the future held, they were ready to face it together. Their unconventional family was beginning to take shape, not just through biology, but through love, trust, and shared experiences. As the days turned into months, Mike, Rachel, and the girls created a new life, a life filled with laughter, love, and the promise of a future they never could have imagined when their paths first crossed. And for the first time in years, Mike felt whole, surrounded by the family he had always longed for. And Rachel began to believe in the possibility of second chances. Thank you for watching this powerful story of unexpected revelations and the pursuit of connection. Michael's journey is a poignant reminder that sometimes the past comes rushing back when we least expect it, offering us another chance at healing. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional tales. We appreciate your support, and we hope to have you with us again soon on Empathy Stories.